Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's good to be back myself as well.
And it's good to have you back.
Sorry for my absence last week, but as Adam told you, I was a bit under the weather. Just one of 2020's last attempts to ruin our lives, I suppose. And on that note, as we all know, 2020 has been a rough year. That only means that we have a lot to look forward to in 2021.
So much to look forward to. And today on the game show, we are going to be talking about some of the games we are particularly looking forward to in the coming year.
And there's no shortage of games on the horizon. Adam, did you have any difficulty picking your three for today?
Yes and no. There are definitely more than a handful of games that I'm looking forward to. Some of them are remasters, such as the Mass Effect trilogy, and others are games that we've talked about before, such as Near Replicant. So in that case, it was kind of easy because I figured I'll just completely skip those. So I decided to only mention things that I have not talked about yet, and that helped me narrow down the pool. Also, originally, I was going to talk about Project Athia or Project Athia, not quite sure how to pronounce it, but found out that they're actually gunning for 2023. So then, oh well, that's out. So that made it a little bit easier too.
Well, for me, it was actually a little bit difficult because I didn't even know what games were coming out. And after I just Googled games coming out in 2021, I was like, oh, okay, these games are coming. I forgot about those. And I'm thinking, actually, I've got so much in the backlog and I've got a wish list on Steam of 51 games that I would like to play at some point. So I mean, looking at things coming into 2021, probably the only game that I'm probably going to buy is one of the games I'm going to talk about just now, which is a Deathloop. But the other stuff, not so much. So anyway, let's get on with that and let's talk about Deathloop. All right, so my first game is Deathloop. It is released by Arcane Studios. I have talked about them before. They are the makers of the Dishonored games. I was gonna say something else for some reason, but anyway, Dishonored games. They made Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2, owned by Bethesda, which is now owned by Microsoft. So, I mean, this is supposed to be a PS5 and a PC exclusive. I don't know if that's still gonna hold true, given the owners of Arcane at the moment. But basically, what this game is you are someone who's stuck in a time loop. And if you don't know what a time loop is, but if you're a middle-aged gamer, you're watching us, you grew up watching Groundhog Day, you're stuck in the same time every day. So you're this assassin, his name is Colt, you wake up on an island called Black Reef. The other residents of Black Reef, which is a former base, are having a party. But the party that seemingly lasts forever. So, and at the end of the night, the island resets and you wake up in the same place, but you're the only person in the island who actually remembers what's happened during each of the loops. And as you can see in the gameplay, it's very much um, similar to Dishonored. Like you have powers, you have guns. Well, I mean more guns, given that it's sort of like a modern game in a sense. And you get to do more cool stuff. And I want to forward some of this trailer a little bit. There you go, and you can see like you've got powers and you're shooting people, and it's a very stylistic. I would say it's a little bit more arty than some of the than Dishonored 1 or Dishonored 2. But it looks like a very cool game, and I love the idea of about time. I remember there was a game Singularity that I played years ago, which you could forward and reverse time in a localized area, and so you could rebuild stuff and disassemble stuff. And so, as to who would like it, anybody who likes Dishonored 1 or Dishonored 2, games involving time, of course, it's just me. And anyone who likes action games, because this does seem quite a bit like an action game with sort of like a little bit of a puzzly element as you have to sort of figure out, I would imagine, how to get yourself out of the time loop. This game looks pretty much done, and from social media and other stuff like that, I've seen it that the game is pretty much done. So I don't anticipate any delays moving into 2021. So I can say this is, I mean, with 90% certainty that this is something we will be able to buy when it does release on May 21st, 2021, with no hitches, no problems, anything like that. I'm looking forward to it. And what do you think, Adam?
I mean, it looks very interesting. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I saw it when they did the reveal. Why do you think the exclusivity would be in question?
Because it is owned by Microsoft now, and Microsoft,
Ah,
Of
the
course.
Bethesda, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. That's literally why, even though, I mean, this is the PlayStation trailer, uh, and Microsoft did say, they do want to make games available to more people. I don't think, even though they did say initially they were going to honor exclusivity deal, I really don't think in 2021 they're going to do that.
Can they do that though? I mean, if say Bethesda has a contract for exclusivity, can Microsoft kind of negate that?
I mean, I'm sure there are clauses for fees and fines, and I mean, given Microsoft's extremely deep pockets, I don't see why not.
Oh, okay. Because I know that. I mean, this is slightly off topic, but I know that there was a case where there was an author for for a book that took place in the EU in the extended universe in Star Wars, and when Lucasfilm was bought up by Disney, they decided not to pay this guy, and they said because you never had a contract with us, we don't have to honor it, and they ended up taking it to court. I don't think it's been solved yet. But I was just wondering if it might be something like that, where if they decide we're not going to make it exclusive anymore, would Sony have, say, some kind of grounds where they could take them to court and say, you have to honor this contract? Or since Bethesda is no longer its own entity, could they theoretically just say, we're going to bypass it?
I mean, I think given Sony's size and Microsoft's size and the relationships, I mean, Sony could if they wanted to, but I mean, but it's not like you're fighting people who are pretty much equal in size. You're unlikely to win in any second and just waste a lot of money and time. So
Okay, so they probably just come to some sort of settlement. And
yeah, or settlement, or just Sony might just be. I mean, it is let Microsoft do what they want.
okay. So, do you know if there's going to be a multiplayer aspect to this, or is it going to be purely single player?
Dishonored didn't have multiplayer, and I don't imagine this is given the state of the game. Uh, I don't foresee this having multiplayer. Multiplayer was not mentioned when I did my research.
Okay. And is this more like a first person shooter kind of thing, or is this more like a puzzle game? Like what's the game? I'm trying to remember. The Outer Wilds,
Oh,
or to a lesser extent,
yes,
Majora's
yes.
Mask, where it's resetting over and over and over again. Is it kind of like that, where you're gonna figure out something, and then on your next iteration, you can kind of skip certain things because you have knowledge on how to say, like, for instance, if you talk to a guy and he gives you a code, the next time it resets, you can just immediately use that code to do something, as opposed to having to, go through the whole process again. Is it going to be kind of like that, where it's like a puzzle thing as you work your way through, or?
I don't know. That part was not like a bit light on the details, and I was like wondering about the difficulty and dying repeatedly and stuff. But I guess we'll have to wait. I would imagine after Chinese New Year here in Taiwan, we'll get a little bit more details, more gameplay footage to sort of see what is going on with the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I also remember hearing something really cool where they were specifically mentioning this game for the haptic feedback on the PS5, where they were talking about how when you load the weapon, you can actually feel the shells going in with the haptic feedback.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, and then the fact that weapon can actually jam now, so when you're trying to pull the trigger, it just won't go. Uh, so they can add features like that. That's like in traditional games, we don't have things like gun jamming because it might be just kind of jarring if you're just like, why did it stop firing? And then you kind of have to figure it out. But here you can physically feel like it's jammed. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what they do with the with all that, and how it goes. So
Yes,
kind of
definitely.
looking forward to this one too.
All right. What about yours?
All right. Well, my first game is I now scrolled down to it. Obviously, going to be Horizon Forbidden West, not Horizon Zero Dawn. So obviously, I've been looking forward to this game for a very long time, and I was kind of hoping it would be a launch game, and it's not. But that's actually okay, because this means that it's going to be a full PS5 game. This is not going to be one of those cross generational games. So it's developed by Guerrilla Games, and its publisher is Sony Interactive Entertainment. So we're not quite sure when it'll be coming out, but it will be coming out either quarter 3 or quarter 4 2021, so in time for the holidays this next year. And as I said, it's going to be PlayStation only. So basically, if you've played Horizon Zero Dawn, you kind of already know what to expect in this game. The gameplay is not going to be all that different. We're probably going to have access to a few new tricks and stuff. I would imagine Aloy's going to have some new weapons. She's going to have some new arrow types. We're also definitely seeing new kinds of machines, while we're also seeing some of the older machines. So if you watch, there's a part where she's underwater and you see one of the gator machines. I can't remember what they're called, Snapjaw or something like that. So she's got so we're seeing some of the older ones. We're also seeing these newer ones, like these big mammoth looking things and the turtle looking things. I can't remember any of their names, but they look like animals, so I can say what they look like. But yeah, so they have all these new machines that she's going to be dealing with. She's in a new place. She's in the Forbidden West. In the original game, basically, people call it the Forbidden West because you should not go there. It's just all bad news and nothing good comes out of it. So it's forbidden, thus the Forbidden West. And the Forbidden West is in the U.S. So if you play the original game, it takes place in the heart of the USA. I think I think around Detroit is kind of one of the main central areas of it. Everything's kind of scaled down. So, you actually span several states within the game, but it doesn't feel like several states worth of space. This game's going to be a little bit bigger. It's going to cover basically from Utah all the way up to the West Coast. So you're going to have a lot of space out there. There's going to be a lot more water exploration. So in the first game, there wasn't really any water exploration. You could kind of swim around on the surface of things, and mostly it was just crossing rivers or tiny little lakes. Now there's going to be full underwater exploration, so that's going to be an element to it. And they have new tribes. So these new tribes, some of them are going to be friendly, like in Horizon Zero Dawn. Some of them are going to be hostile, and one of the hostile ones have figured out how to hack the machines and take them over, similar to how Aloy has done it. So we're not quite sure where their technology for that is coming from, if they figured it out similar to how Aloy did, or if they are using a similar hacking technology to what the other machines were using in the previous game. Because if you watch them, they have the red eyes, whereas when Aloy hacks them, they have the blue eyes. So it looks like they're going to be using something similar to what the bad guy machines were using in the original game. And it does look like, if you've played the game, there's a character, Silence, and he's very important in terms that he's the one that kind of guides Aloy and teaches her how to hack these machines. And he's the one that he's been doing kind of this research on the old ways that basically gets Aloy up to speed much, much faster than she would have if she was, doing everything on her own. So he's basically kind of gone on a similar journey, but started a lot longer. So he's kind of like a mentor, but he definitely has some nefarious goals. And so it looks like he might have been the one to kind of help these guys out and figure out how to hack machines, because we do see him in the trailer as well. So it'll be interesting to see what he's doing around there. So if you've played the original one, it's probably going to play originally basically the same. If you're a fan of the original, or if you really like ARPGs, games like Assassin's Creed or something like that, or Ghost of Tsushima, this is probably going to be a great game to check out. And it's going to be a PS5 exclusive, and it's made by a first party. I think it's going to be probably one of the games that's really going to be featuring, what the PS5 can do. So I'm looking very forward to this. Yeah.
Okay. So you said quarter three, quarter four. How reliable do you think it is to be coming out in 2021? Do you think this is a guarantee? Like Deathloop? I mean, Deathloop has an official date.
Yeah. I would say it'll probably be quarter four. That would be my guess, because a lot of things do get delayed nowadays. So I think quarter three is kind of the original goal, but then they don't want to set an official date because they're not quite sure. So I would say, though, that it probably will be released in quarter four, just because I think they do want to have it out in time for the holidays. So I think this would be something that they're really kind of gunning for that. And I mean, it might end up being kind of a Cyberpunk 2077 situation where maybe they might release it and they probably should have put more time into it. That's definitely a possibility. But I would say I'm like 85-90% sure that it will release at some point in 2021. And also, we don't know quite how far into development they are. So we know that we've seen, we saw footage of it a while back. So we know that they've been working on it. And basically, shortly after the original one was finished, one of the voice actresses from the original one said that they were already working on the second one. So it looks like basically either, around the time it was finished or maybe right after it finished, they started working on this. So the first one was released, I'm trying to remember, was it 2017, 2018? So they've had a few years of development on it. So I would say it's pretty safe to assume it'll release this year.
Okay. Um, Now, given that you played the first one and I still have the first one on my list on PC to buy, um, what do you hope that they change? What's a mechanic you didn't like in the first one, or something that really were like, oh man, this sucks. I hope they fix this in the next one.
I couldn't think of any mechanics I didn't really like that I felt sucked, but there were things that I felt that they could improve on. For example, in the first one, because it was kind of set up like an Assassin's Creed game, it was very much set up like an older Assassin's Creed game where you could climb things, but you could only climb things at specific points. So, for example, if there was a cliff face, you could only climb it with certain, if there were certain rocks or whatever. And having played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can climb pretty much anywhere, I would really hope that they adopt more of that, where you can pretty much climb anywhere you want, as opposed to only climbing in specific spots. And I know that they definitely did rely a lot on these kind of climbing puzzles, but I think they could still do those to an extent. I mean, Assassin's Creed kind of does them by having, say, a tower where you can't climb it, but then what'll happen, or you can climb it, but then it'll be, it'll be covered in ice, or maybe some of the surface areas will be smooth, and because of that, you can't climb the smooth areas, or you can't climb the ice areas. You have to find the patches that of stone that you can still climb. So you can still keep the puzzles kind of in there for that. But I think in general, I would really enjoy it if they allowed more kind of free climbing and stuff like that. So I think that'll be good. Also, I mean, I really enjoyed the story, but one of the big things that people were comparing it to, because it was released the same year as Witcher 3, was that in Witcher 3, you can make a lot of different decisions, and to an extent it'll impact the story. So if you do something with a character here, then that character might show up later as a friend or an enemy, or you could, burn bridges with certain characters and they don't like you anymore, or you can befriend certain characters. So there was a lot of, if you played it again, you can kind of go down a different path and make different decisions. In Horizon Zero Dawn, you can make decisions, but they're basically just dialogue choices, but they don't actually change any of the story. So if you want to go through, there was only one instance of something where it could impact something, and that was basically a guy wants to fight you to the death, and you can choose to fight him to the death and grant him his wish, or you can kind of convince him, hey, we'd be better off with you around. I mean, you have this drive for fighting, for combat and whatnot. We could really use that in the fight against the machines. Don't die now, and you can convince him to continue on and live and become an ally. So other than that one thing, everything else, basically, if you're doing a quest, you're going to finish it and everybody's going to be happy and stuff like that. So I would like to see maybe a few instances where you can kind of make a few different choices, maybe ally yourself with tribe A or tribe B, as opposed to just befriending everybody. I think that would give it a little more replay value. So I think that could be improvement.
Okay, okay. That definitely sounds. I mean, looking at the trailer, looks awesome. Really makes me like. I mean, the Steam winter sale is still going on, and what makes you want to check what the price of Horizon Zero Dawn is.
Do it.
Gotta do it.
It's an amazing game. It's one of my favorite, and the bow combat is phenomenal. I mean, it was just great. What Ghost of Tsushima did with melee combat, Horizon Zero Dawn does that with ranged combat. It's just very well done, very dynamic, and it's a lot of fun.
I love the bows, especially after being a fan of Green Arrow. Can be a Green Arrow in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Definitely can.
All right, moving on to my second game. My second game is going to be uh, Batman Gotham, Batman Gotham Knights. Even though this technically in this part of the game, Batman has allegedly died. So Batman Gotham Knights is coming out in 2021. Again, this game does not have a specific release date. It's coming out on Windows, all previous consoles, and current gen consoles. The game's story takes place, like I said, after Batman has passed away, after James Gordon has died, and you take the role of Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and the Red Hood. Um, and you've got to come and sort of restore Gotham to justice, and the enemy you're fighting is the Court of Owls, which is something I've heard a little bit about. I don't know too much about. They are a secret criminal society, and they have a legion of brainwashed assassins called the Talons. You'll sort of see them in the trailer. I've played a few Arkham games, Arkham City, Batman Arkham Knight, which I loved to death. And I played another Batman game, one of the other games. I think I played all the Arkham games except the one where it's like the prequel Batman game. And I imagine this is going to be more of the sort of the similar gameplay, but telling a different story where you sort of doing combat, you're solving puzzles, you're progressing the story, you're gaining experience, you're gaining gear, you're making choices about skills, or in this case, what sort of abilities and technical gadgets you can unlock. But the cool thing here is you get, the four sort of critical characters who play a role in Batman's life or that you've seen in oh my God, Teen Titans, or you've seen it on Netflix is Titans, or you've just read the comic books as well, which is cool. And this game is I imagine is going to be a very interesting story and have a lot of dynamics. And one of the cool things is that like for the first time in sort of like a DC multiplayer game is that you get to play uh, multiplayer. So you can play the story and your friend can join you whenever you want, which is perfect for middle-aged gamers. Maybe you have a friend, or maybe you just like me, who like sometimes we get to play together, sometimes we don't get to play together. And that's cool. So you get to play and play by yourself, and whenever you want your friend to join, he can come and join you. And whenever you don't have time, you can just keep playing and progress the story by yourself. And you get to play as the Red Hood, which is awesome because the Red Hood is just the next level. Sort of reminds me of the Punisher, as well in a sense. And yeah, it's looking good with all the different abilities and different combat, and I'm really looking forward to it. As for the people who'd be interested in this game, anyone who played the Arkham games, anyone who likes open world games, because these games are open world, you get to do what you want to do in these games, and of course there are the main story missions which you do to progress the story. Anyone who's a fan of DC or any of the four characters involved in the games, I think it's gonna look fantastic. It's probably going to play really well. I am a bit worried about this release date because it is quite different. I mean, the old Batman games, you were just focusing on one particular character, one particular story, and you had a bunch of like sort of minor DLCs. But this game, making this work for four people plus multiplayer, I think is going to be difficult. I'm not, I mean, I'm worried that this might be pushed back to 2022, depending how COVID goes.
Okay. So how many times has Batman died now?
I have
Quote
lost
unquote
count.
died. Yeah, that seems to be like a trope at this point, right? I mean, it
Yes.
was a Dark Knight, and then obviously this one, Batman Beyond. He kind of disappeared for a long time.
Yep.
So this is kind of his shtick thing, huh? All right. Uh, so is it a spoiler to talk about Red Hood and who it is, or
No, no, no. Yeah, we shouldn't talk
I was
about
like,
that.
it's shouldn't talk about that, okay? Because I was like, he's been around for a while now, right? But okay. So you said that it has gear. Is this kind of like a preset, like you unlock it as you go, or is this kind of more like Borderlands where you're
Um,
unlocking and
from
you can kind of switch in and out?
Batman Arkham Knight, you could unlock gear, but like the gear is sort of like your RPG tree. So as you progress and you gain levels, you get to unlock this ability or this gadget or this stuff, which I imagine they will continue the system. I'm still hoping they will have like a skill tree or like a strength, speed, stamina kind of system with this game that will make it a little bit more interesting and actually have physical gear like the Injustice games had physical gear.
Okay. So it's going to be kind of like Ghost of Tsushima in a way, where like say for this part of the story, I'm locked into this area, and then I reach a certain point in the story, and I unlock my grappling hook, and now I can access new areas. It's going to be like that, not like you beat up, you equip it, and you can have like this. But if you want to uh, fight a different style or have a different batarang, you have to de-equip the one you have and re-equip another one. It's more of you just unlock new abilities in a way.
That's what I imagine they're going to keep that system. I'm hoping
Okay.
they change it. I mean, I think something interesting would be wonderful. And I think because I mean all the Arkham games were just open world. You can go wherever you want. There are no levels of enemies, but there are places where it is kind of hard. So it will, yeah, just I think it'll follow that trope of just keeping Gotham open and go wherever you want to go in Gotham and find whatever you want to do and do whatever you want to do and just do the core missions when you want to progress the story.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So there are going to be kind of RPG elements where you can unlock new things and kind of build your character the way you want to build them. They're not going to. It's not just kind of a set progression,
No,
or you're
no,
not
no,
sure
no, no.
yet.
I think that will continue the Arkham Knight system. In that sense, I hope, like I said, I hope they did make it deeper, that you can have more things to make, like a more stronger Robin, or a more faster Robin, or a more deadly Red Hood, who uses guns more, and sort of build your character however you want. That's what I'm hoping they implement.
Okay. Also, multiplayer. So I know that this has kind of been an issue with certain games where you would have multiplayer, but you're kind of restricted by distance. So you can't have like two people running on complete opposite sides of the map. I know that's one of the issues that open world RPGs, when they want to add multiplayer, kind of becomes a thing because now you're rendering the world in two places and it becomes much more intensive in terms of processing power. If a friend joins your game, can you both explore freely, or are you kind of linked where you have to stay within a certain proximity of each other, or are you not sure?
I would say I'm not sure. Again, it's something. It's a bit early because this game was just announced in November. The trailer was released and gameplay and that kind of stuff. Think. I mean, I think technology has progressed where they can do it enough. So I can imagine. I think they will allow people to do two things separately, and I could imagine that will allow for some really cool sort of simultaneous missions to be done, uh,
Okay.
and make it that really interesting.
Now, given that this is a superhero game, would you say it's comparable to Spider-Man in any way?
Oh, because I mean, like the PlayStation Spider-Man is super famous, and I think this is definitely not comparable. Uh, because I heard that the PlayStation Spider-Man is also quite finite in terms of time.
Okay.
So this, like, I mean, I played Arkham Knight for 40 hours, and I was not even 70% of the way done.
All right. So this is more open-ended, you would say, or
Oh, well, I mean, this game also has lots of stuff, lots of side missions, lots of like puzzles, and lots of there's so many different kinds of activities, so many things you can do that it's the Arkham Knight, the last game that I played was just like that. So I can't imagine this will deviate from that formula.
okay. So you're not going to be able to play as, say, a brick or a refrigerator or anything like that,
No, unfortunately not.
huh? Spider Brick is the best. All right.
All
Well,
right.
moving on to my next game. I was a little bit torn here. This is the part where I wanted to talk about Project Athia or Project Athia, but unfortunately, it will not be released until 2023. So that one was out, so I had to figure out another game to replace it. And I was torn between Kenna Bridge of Spirits and Little Devils Inside. And Kenna Bridge of Spirits, just looking at it, does look similar to Project Athia. I mean, you have a female protagonist that can use magic, and it looked kind of like the Kingdom Heartsy version of it. You know, kind of have that Kingdom Heartsy kind of happy-go-lucky aesthetic. So it kind of looked like the more family-friendly version of Project Athia. But I ended up going with Little Devils Inside because when I started looking into it, it actually there was a lot I didn't know, and it does look super interesting, and I'm way more interested now than I was before. So it's made by NeoStream Interactive, and it's also published by NeoStream Interactive. Its release date is 2021. They have not said quarter one, two, three, four, five. There's no quarter five. Excuse me, quarter one, two, or three, or four. But they haven't said. So it should release at some point this year. I'm not sure when. I would assume they're probably pretty far into it, and they
Does
are
look
going for a
similar
minimalist
to
design.
Project
So I
Athia.
don't
I mean,
think
you
they're
have
going to have
female
too much
protagonist
trouble getting it out on time.
but they
Also,
haven't
being
said.
an
So
indie
it
game,
should
indie
release at
games
some point
typically
this year.
don't
I'm not sure
have
when.
that
I would assume they're
same
probably
kind of
pretty far into it, and
reputation of
they
being
are going
canceled
for
or
a
eternally
minimalist
delayed
design.
that
So I
AAA
don't
titles
think
do.
they're
I guess
going to have
because
female protagonist.
usually they're not trying to be as ambitious and it's a lot easier to get certain things out the door. So it probably should release in 2021. The platforms are PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, so should be pretty accessible. And the description is actually really interesting. So it has a very unique kind of artistic design. It looks kind of minimalist. It almost has kind of a Tim Burton clay animation aesthetic to it, but at the same time, it almost looks kind of like if you've played games like Tearaway or Paper Animals or something, where it almost has this kind of origami-ish look to it, I guess I would say, where things look kind of polygonal in a way, but they're smooth. Anyway, it just looks really simply done. And if you're looking at the trailer, it seems to have kind of different gameplay elements similar to what we saw in Nier, where certain parts are 3D and there's free exploring, and other parts are kind of 2D, and it kind of cuts between like this part you're just kind of a twin stick shooter looking thing, and this part you're actually exploring. Now, from the description, they say it's a fully 3D world exploration game. So they say it's going to be fully 3D, but looking at the trailer, there definitely seem to be scenes where it's basically more 2D, where you're walking along either like in the city view where you're kind of walking along the city street, or there's parts where he's sitting on the back of the car and there are things running behind him and he's kind of shooting them, but the view is always from the side. It's not like, swiveling with the camera. So we'll see what if it sticks to just the 3D thing, or if it does actually switch between them. But it has some survival elements, and this is kind of where it gets interesting. So the gameplay loop is you have a character, and you'll have some sort of mission where you need to go out and accomplish something, kill a dragon or steal this relic or something like that. And so you have to prepare for the mission before you go on it. So you have to take things into consideration like, is the weather going to be cold? Am I going to the desert where it's going to be hot? And then you actually gear your character based on what you're going to be doing. And so you get your guy all prepped up and ready, and then you go out there, and then you have to do some survival things. Like, for instance, if you don't drink water in the desert, you're going to dehydrate and die. So you have to hack open a cactus and get some water out. Or if you're in the cold, maybe you have to build a fire to keep warm if you get too cold. So it has all that. But the thing is they say it's not a difficult, or at least the people who made it said it's not a difficult survival game, in the sense that if you're playing a game like Don't Starve, or what's that other game, 13 Days or whatever, the zombie one?
28 Days?
No, that's the movie. There's a game where 7 Days to Die, I think.
Okay.
So in these survival games, you basically want to survive as long as you can. So you have to create something sustainable, farming or like Minecraft survival or something like that. And this, it's just survive the mission. So you don't have to worry about creating a sustainable kind of environment where you can come back to for safety. You just have to keep yourself alive long enough while you're out there. So you just have to, gather some water or build some fires, and that's basically it. Nothing too difficult. And plus, because you've prepped beforehand, you should be ready with most of those things anyway. So, my canteen ran out. I just fill it with more water. That's fine. I'm good. I'm good to go. So it does have some survival elements, but it's not super dependent on them. You can upgrade your character. You can upgrade your vehicles. You can upgrade your weapons. And so that'll allow you to explore this world a little bit more efficiently. And also, it doesn't have fast travel. So if you want to go from point A to point B, you have to get on your vehicle and drive from point A to point B and deal with whatever comes along your way along the path. So I don't know how well that's going to work, because I know I have friends that really don't like fast travel, because they're like, oh, it takes me out of the game and it makes it too simple and things like that. But then, of course, when they play it, they always use it, because they're like, oh, well, it's just so convenient. And I mean, who wants to run around the map, 20 times? So I don't know if they're going to have maybe certain waypoints that you can get to. Like maybe there's an outpost in the middle and you can fast travel to the outpost or something. So I don't know exactly, but it sounds interesting not to have fast travel, but I know that could get tedious really, really quickly. So we'll see how much it sticks to that. It's also roguelike in that if your character dies, they're dead. They're gone. You can't bring them back. But you'll take over a new character, and that new character can go out to the body of the original character, and then they can salvage all their stuff. They can grab their gear and all that. So there is this kind of roguelike element to it. And that plays into the characters. Now, they have a minimalist UI. They're trying to minimize menus, so as few menus as possible, as few, anything that's not just real world stuff, as much as they can. So because of that, you really have to read your character. For instance, if you're walking around in the cold, your character might start to shiver. They'll grab themselves and start shivering, and that indicates they're cold, and that's when you need to, warm them up somehow. Or if a character gets injured, they'll kind of limp along and they're kind of like, oh, hurting on their leg or something like that. And that's going to indicate that your character is injured. And so you're going to have to really pay attention to the way your character is behaving, because that's going to indicate their status. All right. So it's kind of like, to an extent, maybe Dead Space, where you don't have a life bar on the screen, but the guy kind of has this thing on his back that'll light up, that'll tell you if his vitals are not doing too well. So you do have to look at the character themselves and pay attention to it. But the characters actually have individual personality traits, and it doesn't tell you what they are from the beginning. So you basically have to play with this character to figure out what their personality kind of is. And certain personality traits might be like, this character is kind of prideful or boastful. They don't want people to see weakness in them. And then if they get injured, they won't indicate that they're hurt. Like a regular character, if they get injured, they might start limping or something like that. Well, a prideful character or a boastful character is not going to start limping unless it's really, really bad, because they don't want people to know that they're injured. So that's kind of an interesting thing there. Or one of the examples they give is that certain characters might be kind of womanizers and they're female obsessed. And when you get into certain areas where there's a woman, the vision will kind of narrow in, so you can't see or focus on other things because he's just so focused on this girl. So it won't tell you what their character's traits are, but as you play them, you'll start to pick up on, oh, okay, this guy, I keep getting injured, but this guy's not really indicating it. I have to really keep an eye on him because this guy doesn't want me to know that he's injured, so he's not going to act that way. So that's kind of really interesting there. And already this game has had its own kind of little scandal. If you watch this trailer, I guess this trailer is the original one. There's a part where he's kind of in this jungle area and he's being chased by these guys with masks. And they have dreadlocks and they kind of have these big red lips and stuff like that. And apparently some people were claiming that that was kind of a racist depiction of African tribes. And so as a result, apparently they've patched that out, or I guess that you can't say patched out because it hasn't actually been released yet, but they've edited those out and they've changed those characters. So apparently it's already kind of had this controversy. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah. And for the people that would enjoy this, I think would be people that enjoy kind of little artsy games. If you like, say, Little Nightmares or something like that, or if you really enjoy just kind of exploration games, maybe survival games to an extent, I think that this would be a good game. Maybe not necessarily to pick up because we don't have that much information on it yet, but just to check it out and see how it goes. I think that would be very helpful. So yeah, go ahead and keep an eye on it.
Okay, I mean, this looks wonderful, and the things you've said sound really interesting. I love the variety of mechanics, but for me, moving into 2021, with Breath of the Wild, with Immortals, Phoenix Rising, the game from Ubisoft that's on the Switch, that people compare that to Breath of the Wild.
Genshin
Without,
Impact compared to Breath of the Wild.
but that has fast travel.
Yeah, it does.
So for me, like, no, a game without fast travel is an immediate just can't do it.
Yeah, that's why for me, I'm like, I'm not sure how well this is going to work because, like, it sounds good on paper, but then in practice, it just gets tedious really fast.
I mean, even playing Cyberpunk at the moment, when I was playing, I streamed on Sunday, and I could not, for the life of me, remember how to fast travel in Cyberpunk. I eventually figured out, and Cyberpunk has specific points where you can only fast travel at that point. And even that was like, that's kind of irritating because, well, I mean, while if I was a person with infinite amount of time, I'd love driving around my virtual, sports car, going on, enjoying the beautiful things in Night City. But actually, I mean, I've got an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe on vacation, and I just want to fast travel, go there, shoot people, come back, upgrade, do the same thing again. So, I mean, I'm still gonna, like you said, I'm gonna keep an eye out for this and see maybe they change their mind. Maybe it doesn't take too long to go between point A and point B. So I'm still gonna keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, I don't know how big the world is, so we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Okay, then I'm gonna move on to my last game. My last game is a game that Ed and I have played, or not really played it yet, but we've played a game by the same company, Fat Shark. They published Warhammer Vermintide 1 and Vermintide 2. This is their new game, which is Warhammer 40k Darktide. So if you've never played Warhammer Vermintide 1 and Vermintide 2, basically it's sort of in the vein of Left 4 Dead, in the same vein as not Evolve. There's another game that I wanted to talk about. I should actually look at my show notes because that's what they're there for.
That is what they're there for.
That is what they're there for, exactly. Yeah, I think I didn't write anything else, but those sort of co-op games where you're playing together, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, you're surviving enemies, accomplishing goals. This is what this game is. But except the cool thing why I'm interested in this is because I like swords and knives and bows and arrows and warhammers and maces and that kind of stuff. I love guns way more. So made by the same company, and Vermintide did really well. Vermintide 2 did really well. And I think this is going to do really well as well. Vermintide 2, unfortunately, sort of didn't really die off, but people don't play it as much because, like, the hardcore gamers eventually just ran out of content. Even though Vermintide 2, like, when Adam and I played it, we had, must have been like 20 missions or something like that. So I'm hoping moving into this game that they have some sort of way to make this more replayable, maybe more ways to get gear or ways to, like, farm a mission and get different gear and sort of make it more replayable, because I can imagine just like Vermintide 2, after you've put in 100, 200 hours, you've like, okay, I've played each of the 20 missions 7 times, I'm done. But anyway, this game's come out in 2021. This is another game that I'm not sure is going to make it in 2021, again because of the complexity, again because of the way it looks. I'm not sure, plus, who knows what's going to happen virus-wise in 2021. It's one thing I think this does have going for it is that Vermintide 2 runs really well. I'm sure this will be another game that even if you don't have a high-end PC, this is still something that you'll be able to play with your friends who have a variety of PCs. And will be sort of similar to Vermintide 2, that you can play 1, 2 missions in an hour session, get your gaming in with your buddies and have a chat and catch up on stuff. I'm really looking forward to this. Probably I put this at number 3 as well because this is something I'm unlikely to buy given the 3 games I've talked about. This will be something that, if Adam and I get to be full-time YouTubers and content creators in the future and we can actually stream stuff together next year, that maybe this is something I'll buy that we can stream together moving into 2021. So as to the people who like it, anybody who likes Warhammer, of course, and especially Warhammer 40k, anyone who loves these co-op style games, the Game Awards was this past month, and they announced a sort of a Left 4 Dead style game. So will have some stiff competition going into 2021. Definitely not for anyone who prefers to play games solo, like Vermintide 2. Like Vermintide 1, you can play it solo, and I think this you can play it solo as well, but you lose a lot of the experience, the excitement that you'd get playing this kind of game, because they are, as much as I've railed against only cooperative games before, unfortunately, this is the game that and I can't imagine them creating it or creating mechanics in such a way that would make this fun as a solo game.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things about these kind of games too, the ones where you're forced to play co-op. I mean, obviously it's inconvenient for people who don't have a lot of time because you have to make time, when you're with your friends, and having that time slot with your friends is kind of hard to manage sometimes. But at the same time, I think these games kind of consider that, they're usually not very long, or the missions aren't that long, so you can actually kind of pop in, play really short, and then pop back out. So I think then in a way it's kind of a double-edged sword where, yeah, it's bad because it's hard. I think they kind of understand it's harder to find time, so they really help you manage your time by making it a lot smaller. Now, who are you playing as and who are you playing against? Because these do not look like the Space Marines.
It looks like the Imperial Guard. I saw like an Imperial Guard las gun. I'm not exactly sure. Yes, your mercenaries.
Okay.
Yeah, your mercenaries, which is why you have like some guy who looks like a orc or an ogre of some kind. Um, I didn't see too much about the character and the story and that kind of sort of stuff. Let me double check.
Yeah, that one guy was kind of big, so I was wondering, is this what a Space Marine looks like when they're outside of their armor? Or...
I heard that Space Marines are pretty big, but yeah, no, they don't mention anything about the specific characters.
Okay.
You are in the hive city of Tertium, which I have not read too many 40k books, so that does not ring a bell at all.
But I'm guessing hive would mean Tyranids.
Probably. But see, like you do see some things that look like Tyranids here, but you also see some things that look like some sort of unknown enemy or chaos, maybe chaos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so is this kind of something, I mean, I'm only marginally aware of what's going on in 40K. So is this kind of something with the mercenaries that they've kind of explored before, or is this kind of going into new territory away from kind of their bread and butter with the Marines and the orcs
I
and the
think they're going away
Eldar?
with the 40k stuff, and I think it's also the generation. I was just as we're talking about something like the generation of people who actually know who the Space Marines are and Warhammer are us, are our generation, and I think that the new, 19, 20, high school age kids and younger, they don't know what this stuff is. So I think they're trying to create something new to bring in new players into this universe.
All right, so you're gonna be able to jump in, and because these guys are say mercenaries and not, Space Marines or something like that, you're gonna be like, you know what, this is gonna be new for everybody. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is gonna be appealing to the old gamers because you're gonna get more, and it's gonna be appealing to new gamers because you don't need any previous knowledge.
Exactly.
Okay, that might
So
be an interesting,
yeah,
smart move to go with there.
we're gonna have to wait and see what they say.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna move into my last game then. Unfortunately, I do not have too much on this because we don't have too much information on it. Again, it's supposed to be released in 2021, no set date, so we're gonna see. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a particularly in-depth game, so I don't think it's going to be too hard for them to get out on time. So the game is called Stray, and you play as a stray cat, which is why the name is called Stray. It's developed by Blue 12 Studios, and its publisher is Annapurna Interactive. So I talked about them last week with Donut County. They did that. They also did Unfinished Swan. These are the guys that did Journey. So they're pretty popular in these kind of small indie games. And because these games are relatively small, Stray, you're trying to work through a city, so it kind of originally sounded like it's going to be quite large. But now, the more that I think about it, I think it might actually be more of a streamlined, kind of smaller thing. So it's going to be available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Basically, the gameplay is you are a cat. You have befriended a small little drone droid that can kind of fly around. And you are living in a city inhabited entirely by robots. Humanity is gone. It's not quite clear whether humanity is gone from the earth and they're completely dead and gone, or if they've just been, expunged from this one city and they're holding out somewhere else. But anyway, robots have kind of taken over everything. Humans are gone, and now the animals kind of have to fend for themselves. And it doesn't seem like the robots are particularly hostile, but at the same time, the way they kind of walk around, they seem to kind of ignore this cat. So it is not quite clear if they're ignoring the cat because they just kind of ignore all organic life, and that makes things harder for animals because they need to get food, or if just because, similar to how humans would likely ignore a stray cat and just walk right straight by it. So it might be a little bit of that as well, where because you're a stray cat, just nobody's really paying attention to you. But anyway, as this cat, you're supposed to explore the city, find out kind of this mystery of where did the people go, and actually it says escape the city. So I suppose that there is some sort of hostility there that makes it that this is not a desirable place for this cat to live. So you're going to have to somehow get away from this city. And being a cat, obviously you're going to have quite a few acrobatic tricks up your sleeve, sneaking into tight spaces and hopping up on ledges and stuff like that. So I'm sure this will be part of the puzzle element, is getting your cat around. And I think, if I remember correctly, the drone's name is B12, and that's obviously going to factor into a few things as well, maybe scanning the area, that sort of thing, and whatnot. And pretty much that's all the information we have on the game right now. We really don't have much more beyond that. But the reason that it kind of interests me was purely basically the aesthetic where you see these robots and the cats wandering through the city, and in a way it's post-apocalyptic because humanity's dead, but in this strange way the robots are kind of filling all the roles that the humans used to have. I mean, we see a robot kind of sitting in a barber chair, and there's another robot kind of tweaking its head, and you see homeless looking robots just slumped in the corner, covered in rags and whatnot, and you see robots walking around. So it's kind of a question as to, did humanity die off and we basically did ourselves in, and we were creating these kind of like, say, in Japan, what they're trying to do with the aging population, where they're trying to get kind of a robot workforce to pick up some of the slack from the lack of young people, for like care for the elderly and that sort of thing. Was this kind of it, where humanity just kind of lazed our way out of existence and we had robots fill our shoes for the roles? Let's build a robot barber so we don't need a human barber, but then, when the humans are gone, it's still just doing its thing. Is it that sort of thing? Or did the robots eliminate humanity purposefully and then just kind of filled in their own shoes and continued with the same thing? Who knows? We gotta, that's kind of the mystery of it, and it's kind of interesting. And being a guy who studied computer science and specifically had a lot of focus on AI, anything that's about robots and that sort of thing and what they do when people aren't around is always very fascinating to me. So that appealed to me right up there. So yeah, again, we don't have too much information on this game, so I can't really recommend it to a specific group, but I would say this is probably the kind of game. I won't say this is the people who should play it, but these are the people who should keep an eye on it. People who like puzzle kind of games, if you're into, say, Journey, or maybe to a lesser extent like Myst, or I recently played Devotion, that sort of game. If you're into that, this would be a good game to keep an eye on. And if you're a cat person, you've always wondered what it would be like to live your life as a cat in a post-apocalyptic world run by robots, then, maybe keep your eye on it and see if if it fits your dream or whatnot. So,
Okay. It looks really interesting. I mean, I don't have too many questions. I know Annapurna Interactive, they put out these kinds of games, so I'm sure it's going to be quality when it comes out, and I might even give that a go because I did see it's coming to PC as well.
yeah. Yeah, not too much information on it. I wish I had more, but as of right now, it's just, this is interesting. Take a look at it.
I definitely agree, and I mean, I don't have any more questions beyond that. I mean, you described it in detail. Looks interesting as well.
Yeah.
All right, and that brings today's episode to a close. Again, we thank you all for coming, and if you are looking for more Middle Age Gaming, feel free to check us out on Middle Age Gaming 2020 on Twitch, at Middle Age Gaming on Instagram, at Gaming Age on Twitter, Middle Age Gaming 2020 on Facebook, and as always, feel free to email us directly at middleagedgaming2020@gmail.com.
Yes, there's plenty to look forward to in 2021. So please let us know what games you're looking forward to. And perhaps we'll find a way to finagle them into a future episode. Maybe there was something that we just forgot, or maybe there's something that we're not aware of. And if you put it up there, we'll think that's interesting, and we'll try to feature it for you. So,
Okay, and stick around. We'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes. After the show, we're going to be talking about 3 predictions from each of us about gaming's or slash tech predictions moving into 2021. Should be interesting discussion, and stick around and we will be back.